Welcome to Olivia Tales. Please don't forget to subscribe to support me. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Emily Carter curled up on her living room sofa with a cup of chamomile tea. The world outside her small suburban home seemed hushed, wrapped in the softness of spring rain tapping against the windows. She wasn't expecting company. Her phone was on silent, the TV was off, and her favorite novel rested on her lap. For once, she allowed herself to simply breathe and enjoy the silence. Emily, 34, had always been a planner. Life to her was a series of boxes to be checked, off work deadlines, grocery lists, bills, appointments. But in recent months, she had found herself questioning the routine. Ever since her long-term relationship ended a year ago, loneliness had crept into the corners of her home like an uninvited shadow. She had friends, yes, but evenings like this only reminded her of the quiet she hadn't chosen. Her thoughts were broken by an unexpected sound. 3 firm knocks at the front door. She froze, the teacup halfway to her lips. No one had told her they were coming. A flicker of worry brushed through her chest. Who could it be, on a rainy afternoon like this? Setting her cup down, Emily rose and walked to the door, her bare feet padding against the wooden floor. When she opened it, her breath caught, standing on her porch, damp from the drizzle, was Daniel Hayes. Emily blinked in disbelief. Daniel, a name that instantly unlocked a flood of memories she had tried to pack away. He had been her neighbor years ago, the kind of man who always offered to carry groceries, who mowed his lawn at sunrise, who once fixed her leaky faucet without being asked. They had never been more than friends, but in the quiet spaces between their conversations, something unspoken had lingered. And now, after nearly 5 years without seeing him, he was suddenly here. "Hi, Emily," he said softly, almost unsure of his welcome. His voice was deeper, steadier than she remembered. His dark hair had a few strands of gray now, and his eyes, warm hazel, still held that calm she once admired. "Daniel," her own voice cracked with surprise. "What are you? How?" He gave a small, awkward smile. "I was driving through town. I heard you were still here. Thought I'd check in. Check in." 2 simple words, yet her heart seemed to stumble over them. She stepped aside without thinking, letting him in. The familiar scent of rain followed him into the house. For a moment, neither spoke. She watched him glance around, as if cataloging the changes in her home, or maybe searching for traces of her life since he'd last been in it. "You haven't changed much," he said finally. Emily laughed lightly, though her fingers twisted together nervously. "I could say the same about you, except maybe the gray." He smiled, and something in her chest tightened. They sat across from each other in the living room, the rain still whispering against the windows. She poured him tea, her hands trembling slightly as she handed him the cup. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was heavy with all the words they had never spoken years ago. Finally, Daniel cleared his throat. "I almost didn't come. I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me after all this time." Her heart skipped. "Why wouldn't I?" He looked down at his cup, then back at her. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes carried something unspoken. "I guess because of how we left things," he said quietly. Emily's breath caught again. Those words, how we left things, unraveled a knot inside her, dragging her straight back to that evening, years ago. The one night when she thought something might have happened between them, but didn't. Single quotes, T. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Daniel, what do you mean by that?" He set the teacup down, leaning forward slightly. The weight of his presence pulled her in. The room suddenly smaller, warmer, charged with questions that had slept for years. And just as she braced for his answer, louder knock thundered at the door. Emily's head snapped toward the sound. Startled, Daniel stiffened to someone else was outside. And the look on his face told her he wasn't expecting this interruption either. The second knock was louder, firmer, as if whoever stood outside didn't plan to leave until the door was opened. Emily's heart thudded in her chest. She glanced at Daniel, who looked as uneasy as she felt. Without a word, she rose from the sofa and walked to the door, her bare feet suddenly heavy against the wooden floor. When she opened it, her eyes widened again. On her porch stood Claire Matthews, her closest friend since college. Claire's auburn hair clung to her damp shoulders, her umbrella dripping water onto the steps. Her expression shifted quickly from surprise to confusion as her eyes flicked past Emily's shoulder and landed on Daniel inside the living room. "Emily," Claire said, her tone sharp with curiosity, "I didn't know you had company." Emily's lips parted, but no explanation came out. She felt caught between 2 worlds, the familiar comfort of Claire's friendship and the unresolved tension of Daniel's sudden return. Daniel rose from the sofa politely. "Hello," he said, his voice calm but measured. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly, recognition dawning. "Wait, Daniel Hayes. You used to live next door, didn't you?" Daniel gave a short nod. "That's right." Silence stretched in the doorway. Rain pattered harder on the roof, filling the pause between them. Emily felt her pulse in her throat, unsure of what to say. "Claire, come in," she finally managed. Stepping aside, Claire entered, slipping off her wet jacket. She glanced at Daniel again, then at Emily, her expression unreadable. "I didn't realize this was a reunion," she said softly. Emily forced a small laugh, though her nerves betrayed her. "Neither did I." Daniel just showed up. For a while, the three of them sat together in the living room. The tea Emily had poured grew cold on the table as small talk tried to fill the gaps. Claire asked Daniel about his life since moving away. He answered, politely mentioning his work in architecture, the city he now lived in, and how he rarely visited this town anymore. But beneath his words, Emily caught the subtle glances he sent her way. Each one made her skin prickle, each one carrying something unspoken. Claire noticed, too. Emily could see it in the way her friend's gaze darted between them, her brows drawn slightly together. Finally, Claire leaned back and crossed her arms. "So, after all these years, what made you come back today, Daniel?" The question hung in the air. Direct, unavoidable. Daniel hesitated, his jaw tightening for a moment. Then he looked at Emily, not Claire, when he spoke. "Because there were things I left unsaid," he admitted. His voice was quiet but steady, as though the truth had been pressing on him for far too long. Emily's breath caught. Her fingers gripped the edge of her sofa cushion. Claire tilted her head, studying him. "Things unsaid. About what?" Daniel didn't answer her. Instead, his eyes lingered on Emily, searching, waiting. And in that gaze, Emily felt the weight of years, the almost confession, the moment that never came, the door that had closed too soon. Claire shifted uncomfortably, sensing the private current between them. "Well," she said quickly, standing up, "I just came by to drop off those books you wanted. Emily, I'll leave you two to catch up." "Claire," Emily began, but her friend was already slipping into her jacket again, her smile tight, her eyes filled with questions she wasn't voicing. Within minutes, the door closed behind her, and the house fell silent once more. Emily turned back to Daniel. Her chest felt heavy, her emotions tangled. "You really came here for unfinished words?" she asked softly. Daniel's eyes met hers, steady, unwavering. "Yes," he said, "and I don't want to leave again without saying them." Her pulse quickened. The room suddenly felt warmer, smaller, as if the air itself was holding its breath. But before she could ask him what he meant, his phone buzzed loudly on the table. Daniel's expression shifted as he glanced at the screen. For the first time since he'd arrived, he looked troubled, almost guilty. Emily frowned, her voice tentative. "Who is it?" Daniel locked the screen quickly, setting the phone face down. "It's nothing," he murmured, but the look in his eyes told Emily otherwise. And for the second time that afternoon, she realized there was more to Daniel's sudden return than he was letting on. The faint hum of rain lingered outside, but inside the room, silence pressed heavily between Emily and Daniel. His phone, face down on the table, seemed to carry its own weight. Emily tried to steady her voice. "Daniel, you say you came back to tell me things you left unsaid, but then your phone rings and suddenly you look like you're holding another secret. Which one is it?" He leaned back slowly, his hazel eyes shadowed with hesitation. For years she had remembered Daniel as a man of steady, calm ways, dependable, always straightforward. Yet now, in this moment, he looked uncertain, torn. Finally, he exhaled. "I didn't come here planning to complicate your day. I just wanted to see you, to explain why I disappeared the way I did." Her heart stirred. That was the question that had haunted her ever since he left town without goodbye. "Then explain it," she whispered. Daniel rubbed a hand across his jaw. "Back then, 5 years ago. You remember the night I came over to fix your porch light?" Emily blinked. The memory rushed back, how the bulb had flickered stubbornly, how Daniel had brought his toolbox and stayed longer than necessary, how they had lingered in the kitchen afterward drinking coffee. She remembered the way he looked at her that night, as though something hung unspoken between them. "Yes," she said softly. Daniel's gaze grew more intent. "That night, Emily, I wanted to tell you how I felt. I had for a long time, but I didn't. Because the next day, I was offered a position in another city, one I couldn't turn down, and instead of saying goodbye properly, instead of telling you the truth, I left. I thought it was the easier choice, but I've regretted it every single day." Emily's chest tightened. She had guessed, once or twice, that there had been more behind his sudden departure, but hearing it confirmed, stirred something raw inside her. Her voice wavered. You mean, you cared for me? He gave a sad smile. I still do. The words fell between them like a stone into water, rippling, changing everything. Emily's pulse quickened, warmth and ache colliding in her chest. But before she could respond, his phone buzzed again, insistently this time. Daniel clenched his jaw and silenced it once more. Emily's eyes flicked to the phone, then back to him. Daniel, she said firmly, you can't just pour this out and then hide something. Who keeps calling you? He hesitated, then finally met her gaze. It's complicated. Her frustration broke through the fragile tenderness between them. So was leaving without a word. So is showing up after 5 years? But if you're here to be honest, Daniel, then be honest. His shoulders tensed, his hand hovering over the phone. For a moment, Emily thought he might shut down, retreat the way he always had. But then, with a slow breath, he turned the phone over and revealed the screen. A name flashed across it. Samantha. Emily's stomach dropped. She didn't know who Samantha was, but the way Daniel's jaw tightened told her it wasn't casual. Her voice trembled. Who is she? Daniel swallowed hard. She's someone from my life in the city. Someone who thinks I owe her more than I can give. Emily's throat grew tight. The fragile warmth of his confession warred with the sting of this half. Are you telling me you came here because you regretted leaving me or because you're running from her? His eyes closed briefly, his expression pained. Emily, I came because of you. But yes, things with Samantha are complicated, and she doesn't want to let go. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Emily wrapped her arms around herself, her mind spinning. She had dreamed of Daniel's return, imagined what it would feel like if he had ever confessed the truth, but she had never pictured another woman lingering in the background, threatening to unravel it all. Her voice cracked, a mixture of hope and heartbreak. Then what do you expect from me, Daniel? He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. Just a chance to explain. A chance to make you understand that what I feel for you, it's real, Emily. It always has been. Her chest ached with the weight of his words. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to reach out, to let years of unspoken longing finally break free. But before she could speak, a sudden flash of headlights swept across her front window. A car pulling into the driveway. Emily's breath caught, and Daniel's face turned pale. The headlights cut across the living room wall like a spotlight, startling both Emily and Daniel into silence. Outside, the crunch of tires on gravel echoed, followed by the faint slam of a car door. Emily's pulse raced. Who's here? She whispered. Daniel didn't answer right away. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the window as though he already knew. Moments later, a sharp knock rattled the front door. Emily froze in place. Daniel stood, every muscle tense, his face drained of color. Daniel, she said carefully, do you know who that is? He hesitated, then nodded once, almost imperceptibly. It's her. Her stomach lurched. Samantha. Before he could reply, another knock louder, more urgent, echoed through the house. Emily's heart thundered as she moved toward the door. But Daniel caught her wrist gently, stopping her. His touch was warm, steady, but his voice carried urgency. Emily, wait, please don't open it. Not yet. She pulled her hand free, her voice trembling. You came here carrying a storm, Daniel, and now it's at my door. The knocking turned into pounding, each strike against the wood vibrating through the quiet house. Finally, unable to bear the tension, Emily opened the door. There she stood, Samantha. She was striking, even in the rain, tall with sleek black hair falling in damp waves over her shoulders. Her dark eyes sharp and fiery. She wore a tailored coat, her posture straight, her expression unreadable until it landed on Daniel inside the house. Daniel, she said, her voice firm, edged with something that sounded like betrayal. So this is where you ran off to? Emily's chest tightened. The woman's gaze flicked briefly toward her, assessing. Then back to Daniel with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but strained. Samantha, this isn't the place. Her laugh was bitter. Not the place. You disappear without a word, and I find you here with her. Emily felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but the words caught in her throat. This wasn't her fight, yet somehow she was in the middle of it. Emily, Daniel said, turning toward her, his eyes pleading, please, just listen. Don't let this moment confuse what I told you earlier. Samantha's brows arched. And what exactly did you tell her? Daniel, that you're still mine? The word struck like a slap. Emily's breath caught, her gaze shifting between the two of them. Still yours? She whispered. Daniel shook his head, his voice low but firm. No, that's not true. Samantha, you know we've been over for months. Months. Samantha's voice cracked with disbelief. You call silence and running away an ending. You never even had the courage to face me, Daniel. You left everything unfinished. Just like you're trying to do again. Emily's throat tightened. Every part of her wanted clarity, but all she saw was chaos. Daniel standing in her living room, confessing feelings she had longed to hear for years, and now this woman at her door, claiming him as hers. Her voice broke through the storm of tension. Daniel, tell me the truth. Right now, what am I to you? A choice you walked away from once, or the person you truly came back for? The silence that followed was unbearable. Samantha's eyes burned with challenge. Emily's heart pounded with fear, and Daniel stood at the center, his chest rising and falling with the weight of the moment. Finally, he spoke, his voice raw, stripped of pretense. Emily, you're the one I've carried with me all these years. Not her. Not anyone else. Only you. The words settled into Emily's heart, both heavy and fragile. She wanted to believe him part of her did, but the doubt Samantha had planted still lingered like a shadow. Samantha's lips curled into a sharp smile. Then prove it. Daniel, tell her everything. Tell her why you never ended things properly with me. Tell her the part you left out. Emily's breath caught. What part? Daniel's eyes closed briefly, pain etched across his face. When he opened them again, his gaze was on Emily, but his voice trembled. Because, the truth is, Samantha isn't just someone I dated. She's someone who once held a piece of my future. A future I almost chose. Emily's world tilted, her heart sinking at his confession. The room seemed to shrink around Emily, the rain outside drowning into silence. Daniel's words, a future I almost chose, echoed in her chest like a dull ache. Samantha stood in the doorway, her eyes blazing with vindication. Tell her, Daniel. Tell her how you asked me to move in with you, how you said we'd build something together, and then how you vanished before the ink on the lease was dry. Emily's breath caught, her hands curling against her sides. You asked her to live with you. Daniel's voice broke with regret. Yes, I did. But Emily, listened to MIT wasn't love, it was fear. I thought if I threw myself into something safe, something that seemed certain, I could erase what I felt for you. I couldn't handle leaving town knowing what I was walking away from. So I tried to replace it, and it failed before it even began. Samantha's face tightened. Safe, she whispered, her voice trembling with hurt. That's what I was to you. Just a distraction from her. The sharp edge in her words pierced through Emily's heart too. She wanted to defend herself, to defend Samantha even, but all she could do was stand frozen as years of silence and choices unraveled in front of her. Daniel stepped forward, his voice low, aching with sincerity. Emily, I was a coward. I ran from you because what I felt was too strong. I thought I wasn't ready, and in trying to prove otherwise, I hurt her. I hurt myself. And worst of all, I lost 5 years I could have spent with you. Emily's eyes stung with unshed tears. His honesty cut through the storm, but so did the weight of what he had admitted. She had wanted his confession for so long, but now it came tangled with another woman's heartbreak. Samantha shook her head, her voice trembling. I can't do this, she whispered, stepping back toward the porch. You've made your choice clear, but don't think this ends with an apology, Daniel. Her gaze flicked to Emily, softer now, touched with wounded understanding. I hope he doesn't leave you the way he left me. With that, Samantha turned and disappeared into the rain, her figure swallowed by the mist. The sound of her car engine soon faded into the distance. The house was quiet again, but the silence was no longer peaceful, it was raw, jagged. Emily turned away, her arms wrapping tightly around herself. Daniel's voice broke through, soft but urgent. Emily, please don't let her words be the last thing you hold on to. I came back for you, not to escape her, not to chase a mistake. For you. She turned slowly, her eyes shining. Do you know how many nights I sat here wondering why you left without saying goodbye? Do you know how many times I told myself I wasn't enough for you to stay? Her voice cracked. And now you tell me it was because I meant too much. Daniel's shoulders sank, his own eyes glassy. Yes, and it's the greatest regret of my life. But I can't change the past, Emily. All I can do is stand here now, asking you for another chance. Her heart warred with itself. The part that had longed for this moment wanted to fall into his arms, to let the past dissolve, but the part that had carried the weight of his silence wasn't ready to forgive so quickly. She drew a shaky breath. I don't know if I can just forget everything, Daniel, but I also don't know if I can ignore what you just said, what I've always felt when I looked at you. He stepped closer, his hand hovering, not touching, waiting. Then, don't ignore it. Let it be the start of something new. No promises, no rushing. Just us. If you'll let me. For a long moment, Emily searched his face, the Nan who had once been just a neighbor, then a memory, now standing before her, with his heart open. Finally, she placed her hand in his, her voice trembling. One chance, Daniel. That's all I can give you. His eyes softened with relief, with gratitude. That's all I need. Outside, the rain began to ease, the clouds parting just enough to let a sliver of light spill through. Inside, Emily felt a fragile hope take root. The road ahead would not be simple, there were wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, but, as she stood there with Daniel's hand in hers, she knew her quiet house no longer felt so empty, and for the first time in years, her heart whispered what her mind could not deny. Maybe, just maybe, love had finally knocked on her door. The end.